Hello and welcome to the House of Wellness. I'm Luke Darcy and welcome to the team. Joe Stanley, Jacqui Felgate and Dr Nick Carr. Good to see you guys.
Hello.
See you, Darcy.
Awesome to be here as always, Darcy. And this weekend is all about the AFL Grand Final. There's a public holiday, the parade, barbecues all over the state and the footy, of course. I just love it.
Oh, call me biased, but I'm so excited the Grand Final is back at the MCG for the first time since 2019. There is nothing better than the vibe at the MCG when it's packed.
Slipping under the radar with a little less pomp and ceremony than the Grand Final, you might not be aware, but September the 23rd is also Restless Legs Awareness Day.
Are you making that up or not? I mean, that's an actual thing.
You know, it's actually a real condition. It's an uncontrollable urge to move the legs that typically happens at night. It's particularly annoying because it disrupts sleep.
Well, actually, I have a friend who has this and it almost ended his relationship because of the lack of sleep for him and his partner. It was very, very difficult. But does it happen during the day?
It's actually a really complicated condition. It's a bit mysterious because we don't really know that much about it, except it can hit at any old age, and it could be due to low dopamine or low blood iron levels. And although it might sound a bit trivial, for those who have it, it actually can be a really distressing condition.
Yeah, and actually, when I think about it, Beck has a bit of that at night time as well. So, yeah, and it is.
Put her to the spare room.
Well, that's right. Actually, I'll be the one in the spare room very soon. Now, bringing some awareness to it, Nick, I think, as you just did, is a good thing. So it has its own special day, which I didn't know, and it seems right to kick off on that note, Jack, with some health news.
Indeed does. First up, we look across the Tasman and what's believed to be a world-first kidney donor program. Hundreds of Australians waiting for life-saving kidney transplants can now benefit from the generosity of New Zealand donors. After a 2-year hiatus caused by, what else? COVID, the Australian and New Zealand paired kidney exchange program is back up and running. What a great thing, Dr. Nick.
Yeah, this is actually brilliant news because more than 3/4 of patients on Australia's organ waiting list need a new kidney, and thousands more are on dialysis and may need a transplant at some point. And finding the right match can take months or even years, which is time many of these people don't actually have.
When borders closed due to the pandemic, so did the life-saving exchange program with New Zealand that actually started back in 2019. So it's great news that it's back again, Daz.
Yeah, the world has opened up again, Jack, and spring is a perfect time to travel. It seems everyone that I know is either going overseas or planning to do it in the near future.
Oh, it does not pay to be on Insta right now if you're here in Australia. But it's also a great time to get out in the garden and weed, I'm told. Not that I do it. For my husband, he's out there doing some beautiful gardening this time of year.
Unfortunately, that also makes September hay fever season. Every year at this time, the amount of pollen in the air increases. And if you're in the 1 in 5 Aussies who suffer hay fever, you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah, people with hay fever are much more likely to suffer from the other so-called atopic conditions such as asthma and eczema. And even hay fever on its own can be really debilitating. It makes people miserable, exhausted.
Yeah, I suffer from this, especially in the morning. You wake up and you already feel congested, and there's a few other factors that come into play as well. Here's leading respiratory specialist, Professor Joe Douglas.
The people who are most likely to get hay fever are those who have an allergic disposition or those who are more likely to be allergic, and that's determined by their genetics and possibly by their early life environment. So about half of the population is fundamentally allergic, or doctors call it atopic, which means they're likely to make allergic antibodies. They're made to potentially defend against things in the environment which would not hurt us anyway if we didn't make an antibody to it. So they make allergic antibodies to things in the environment that are otherwise harmless, like grass pollens or dust mite or cat allergens. Hay fever often occurs in the teenage years. It's often what people call an allergic march. Often people really early in life have eczema, and then later in life, perhaps around 7, they often come on with asthma, and then hay fever will occur in the early teens and teenage years, although it can occur at any time in life. The other group of people who are often likely to get hay fever are people who come to Australia, particularly from Southeast Asia, and interestingly, often after about 3 years they'll start to experience hay fever symptoms, having never experienced before where they grew up.
Well, the best part about spring is what follows it for me, Jack. I love the beach, my favourite time of year. Nothing better than being hanging out in your shorts and your thongs.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Darts and thongs are as Aussie as Uluru or a weekend Barbie. But have you ever wondered what happens to them once they break or wear out? Over in Kenya, a local wildlife warrior was upset by the amount of styrofoam thong debris, would you believe it, on the shore of Kauai Island. The broken down rubber was playing havoc with newly hatched sea turtles.
Well, of course, styrofoam isn't biodegradable and it can last up to 500 years, so it's as big a menace as plastic to the oceans.
The kids started collecting the old thongs and turning them into toys, creating both a safe path for the turtle hatchlings and a light bulb moment for a visiting wildlife researcher. Julie Church encouraged Kenyan locals to collect, wash and fashion the rubbish into art to be sold at markets. The project has grown into a fully fledged not-for-profit movement called Ocean Soul, which now gives the Kenyan islanders jobs and an income and upcycles thong trash into art and other products. Isn't that lovely?
I think it's extraordinary because Kenya's now a global leader in conservation. It banned single-use plastic bags 5 years ago, and it's one of the first African countries to do so. They're way ahead of the curve.
Well, actually, wildlife conservation and restoring its habitat is a cornerstone of Kenya's economy. And how much do you love saving those little turtles?
We do. And every $20 spent on the flip-flop art equals 66 kilos of ocean trash collected. It's amazing. So head to the Ocean Soul website to see more of this beautiful art.
What a fantastic initiative that is, Jack. Still to come, we meet the AFLW's youngest recruit. And up next, our other Dr. Carr, Isabel, helps raise awareness for blood cancers.
Well, Dr. Nick, I would say pretty much all of us fear going to the doctor and hearing the word cancer. And I was staggered to find out an estimated 162,000 new cases will be diagnosed in Australia this year.
Yeah, as a GP, having to tell someone that they've got cancer is always a really tough consultation, even though we know that the outlook is actually often really good.
Well, awareness around the most common cancers like breast, bowel and prostate is thankfully high, and we're getting better at detecting and treating all of those. But there are also less common types that we don't hear much about.
Yeah, and one of those is myeloma, which is actually a relatively rare type of blood cancer that develops from plasma cells in the bone marrow. It affects around 18,000 Australians, men slightly more than women, including actually a close friend of mine, Joe.
Well, September is Blood Cancer Month, which shines the light on myeloma and other blood disorders. And here's Dr. Nick's better half, daughter, Dr. Isabel, with more.
Victorian father Jeff Nissen had just celebrated his 40th birthday when a sporting injury led to a shocking discovery.
I was jumping up and dunking the basketball. And what happened was in dunking the basketball, my upper humerus bone popped. And I thought, you know, having just turned 40, I'm an old man now, I've probably dislocated my shoulder, an old man injury. But on going to hospital and after having a few tests, we soon found out that it was something far more sinister, that my upper humerus bone had actually completely fallen apart. And given that that's the case, the doctors spent a couple of weeks trying to work out what it was that actually caused that break.
It wasn't until Jeff underwent a bone biopsy that he was diagnosed with a rare form of myeloma, a type of blood cancer that develops from rogue plasma cells in the bone marrow. Epworth Freemasons haematologist Professor Miles Prince says a delayed diagnosis is common for myeloma.
Because it's in the bone marrow, it destroys the bones, and so patients often present with bone-related problems. It's not a bone cancer per se, it's the destruction of the bone, and so patients will present, for example, they fall off their bike, might be fit and well 50-year-old, and then he has a fracture. So it's tricky for the GP to diagnose this because they've got to be thinking about myeloma as a potential diagnosis. It can masquerade as a whole lot of other diseases, anything between thin bones like osteoporosis to the causes of kidney failure.
How common is myeloma?
relatively common. It's not talked about that much. The incidence of myeloma last year, there was 2,600 patients with myeloma diagnosed last year. The average age is 65 to 70, so that means half the people are over 65. Unfortunately, it remains incurable, and so about 1,100 people die from myeloma every year.
When you were first diagnosed with myeloma, what was going through your head?
What was interesting about it is I had never heard of myeloma. I had no idea what it was. It actually, I went and did what most people do is I jumped on Wikipedia and had a quick look at what it was and what my, new life looked like. And I found out that potentially I only had a few years to live. So it was just, utter devastation at that point. You start the day with plans, hopes and dreams, and inside of a 5-minute medical consultation, everything changes. Everything goes out the window.
The average length of survival following a myeloma diagnosis is less than 10 years. But with the support of his family and not-for-profit organisation Myeloma Australia, Jeff has maintained a remarkably positive attitude through a number of challenging treatments.
You quickly come to the realisation that, life is a gift, not a promise. And so what you do is, or what I had to do was I had to find purpose. And so in purpose, I found purpose in supporting fellow patients. I found purpose in supporting myeloma research. But most of all, my purpose is to be here supporting my kids, supporting my family, because at the end of the day, if ever there was a time when I wasn't here, they're the ones that are going to miss me most, and so that's what's most important to me.
Jeff's a unique individual. He is a mixture of somebody who understands what it means to have a disease that's considered incurable, yet has the capacity to carry on life and be determined and be realistic. One of the things that I've learned from him is that the fight against cancer is a fight against time, and it's about new discoveries. And that's really what a lot of patients with cancers are grappling with, is how can they buy more time for the next treatment to come, because treatments are coming incredibly fast.
Having battled the cancer with chemotherapy, radiotherapy and 3 stem cell transplants, in 2019 Jeff was put onto a groundbreaking antibody medication.
Look, it's called daratumumab, and it's being an antibody, it's somewhat revolutionary in that what it does is it actually teaches my immune system how to find the myeloma, as opposed to the old style of chemotherapy whereby chemotherapy goes in and just kills the myeloma, but it also kills your own cells and is detrimental to your body. This drug is far kinder in the way that it attacks the myeloma, or teaches your own body to attack the myeloma.
I understand this antibody treatment has only recently been listed as part of the pharmaceutical benefit scheme. What kind of a difference has that made to you?
Well, when I first had the option of receiving daratumumab, the haematologist then told me that it was going to cost me $500,000 a year. The last thing a patient wants to do is to take that money away from the family, especially with myeloma being a terminal disease. There's no promises. So it's critical that, patients get that support.
It has been 8 years since Jeff received his diagnosis, and whilst the antibody treatment is keeping the myeloma at bay, there remains no cure.
I feel really lucky in that my myeloma stayed stable with about 10% of cancer in the bone marrow. The nature of myeloma is that it's a resilient little cancer, and so it does come back and it does rear its head. We hope that it doesn't rear its head anytime soon.
In 1999, we had really one set of drugs, chemotherapy. Now we have over 15 different drugs for myeloma, and there's no reason to believe that myeloma isn't potentially curable.
I certainly have hope, because I reflect on the archaic nature of the treatments that I've been through, so I really have a lot of hope. ultimately what we want to do is we want this disease to go from being a terminal disease into a chronic disease, a disease that we live with as opposed to dying from.
Like the growing army of Australians, one thing I try to avoid during my weekly food shop is plastic packaging. The major supermarkets are trialling letting customers bring their own reusable containers to fill up at the deli counter. It's great, but why stop there? The reuse and reduce waste revolution now includes an everyday staple that's bringing new meaning to the phrase "got milk." Simon, you've recently partnered with Tassie company The Other Way. I love the name, and you're delivering milk differently. What's actually involved?
So it's quite simple. We've got a milk keg that holds 18 litres, a dispensing system here in store that allows the customer to come and bring their 1 litre and 2 litre bottles, decant it themselves, take it home, consume it and come back the next day and do it again. So they're removing all that single-use plastic. We've saved over 30 tonne of plastic with our existing milk and glass system, and we expect that this keg system will actually save a heck of a lot more.
We get so many other things out of a tap, most notably beer and water, but why do you think it's taken so long to get milk out of a tap?
Well, milk's quite more challenging. There's a lot more safety precautions that we need to put into milk, so that's probably been the reason why it's taken so long. But it's also been an innovative small company like us and The Other Way and other partners as well that allow us to bring it to the consumer directly.
This is just one way of the future. I think it's getting back to, filling the billy from the local dairy farmers. So we're trying to take that back in an urban environment. The response has been amazing. The interest has been incredible. Now it's just a matter of changing their habits and bringing their bottles back, refilling them and taking them home. So it's a slow process, but working with Simon, we'll get there.
We've been organic for such a long time, but, we needed that next generation, my generation and my kids' generation, to come through and really take it to the next level. We think we're on a 100-year journey and we're only 50 years in. Wait and see what it's like in 100 years' time.
We'll have to raise a glass to that.
Absolutely.
From milk on tap that runs free to slipping on the trainers for a run, if you loathe pounding the pavement or, like me, find it near impossible to go the extra K, stick around to find out how to put the joy into jogging next on the House of Wellness.
It's time to take a trip down memory lane, GQ, because one of the first health lessons I remember is the importance of looking after my bones.
That doesn't surprise me, Heinzie. Bone health is especially important as a child, as you're growing and developing, but maintenance is also a consideration.
Then consider calcium, my friend, an essential mineral for building healthy bones throughout life. Now, if you're not getting enough calcium through foods like dairy, seafood or vegetables, your bone strength and density will gradually decline.
Even if you are eating enough calcium in food, lacking the nutrients to assist its absorption may also increase your risk of weaker bones or teeth.
Way to bring down the mood, GQ.
Not when there are some vitamins to the rescue. Vitamin D3 and vitamin K2 help support the processes of bone mineralisation and calcium absorption.
Well, vitamin D3 is the elusive of the two, as it's often referred to as the sunshine vitamin, and it is best sourced through our skin's exposure to the sun. Safely, of course. And vitamin K2 is found in fermented foods and animal products.
And you can find all three bone-building nutrients in supplement form.
Love your work. As always, GQ. Now, whilst we are taking a trip down memory lane...
No, not down that road.
Do you remember that time in Hawaii I asked you to put sun lotion on my back?
Didn't do it.
The A to Z of Vitamins is brought to you by Go Healthy's Go Calcium 1 a Day, a convenient, easy-to-absorb formulation to help support bone health.
Heinzie and GQ there telling us how we can better love our bones. Now, speaking of things we love or loathe, Jacqui, any plans to tackle another marathon, which is a great effort?
I did one once. I won't be going back. Look, I'm thinking about doing another half marathon, but a marathon, it's a whole other step up.
Yeah,
You'd be used to it, though.
No, too much pain for me. People tend to either be running fanatics or seriously hate it, and I must admit, I don't miss running. We used to do that with someone with a stopwatch, just making it sort of hard for you. So I've done enough running in my lifetime. But, Jo, you're a very keen runner, and you stepped up for the role as a Get Active Week ambassador, which is great.
Yeah, absolutely. I do love running. I've done a marathon, a couple of halfies myself. It was a long time ago, but you never stop telling people that you did a marathon, don't you think? Yes.
Absolutely.
But the thing I love about Get Active Week, it's all about the fact that you don't actually have to do your 30 minutes of activity a day in one go. This absolutely blew my mind when I learned this. You can do 3 10-minute blocks in your day and it's the same impact. Can you believe that?
Yeah, and I'm with you with this show because I used to be a bit of a runner, but with my dodgy knees, I've had to stop that now, the bicycle for me. But you're absolutely right, because bits and pieces of exercise, they all add up. So for me, it's always the stairs, never the lift or the escalator.
That's exactly right. So the point is of making use of the activity you're already doing and actually taking a little bit step further, which all adds up to your 30 minutes. When I vacuum, how's this? Sometimes I put a backpack full of books on my back. Just to amp up the intensity of the vacuuming.
It's very impressive. Also very random, but very impressive. Yes, and running, of course, has its following. 3 million Australians run, making it one of our most popular physical activities. That includes those who do it to keep fit or for fun, to professional Olympic track and marathon runners.
Yeah, one devotee who loves lacing up the trainers to pursue the need for speed is former NRL star Ben Lucas. And we send our own Zoe Bingley-Pullen to catch him if she can.
So, Ben, when it comes to your footy career versus your running career, how different are they?
Well, funnily enough, so, you know, back in the day, running used to be my job, but now running is the escape from my job. You know, I work pretty big days, but I really try to fit in a run sometimes, and it makes me feel so much better for getting back into work.
We all talk about that runner's high. Why is it so important for our mental and physical health?
There's a couple of things. Being outdoors in nature, fresh air, sunlight are so good for you as well as those post-exercise endorphins that really make you feel good.
So apart from sort of the cardiovascular health and the mental health, what's some of the other benefits we can get from running?
There's the longevity. There's been studies show that you live so much longer for running regularly too. Obviously, calorie burn, weight loss, so you're carrying less weight on your joints, on your knees, on your back, so it's actually not bad for your joints. Running is good for your joints too.
As a woman, what are some of the best ways to build muscle fitness? It's going to really improve my core, my fitness and my overall strength.
There's a lot of running-related things that women can do that can help them with that. So running hills is really good for your quad and core strength. Another way is sand running too, which is great for your lower body strength. And also doing some body weight resistance training, things like lunges, squats, planks and dips are going to really help you build your strength.
So Ben, I love running, but what's some of the ways I can avoid the early burnout?
Yeah, look, I think running some really nice routes as well. Like I like running around Sydney Harbour, Bondi Beach, things like that, where you're really kind of entranced by nature. But I guess another way too, when I run, I like to run near a bus route. So if I don't want to come all the way back, I can just hop on the 333 to get me back home.
I like that one. I'm going to use that. Or a taxi stand.
Yeah, exactly.
I love what you said. You ran 5Ks in 365 days. Was that hard to get both?
So I just finished up. I'd run five kilometres a day, every day, for 365 days in a row. And for me, I think the 5K distance is achievable for anyone. It only takes between 25 and 40 minutes. You can fit it in at lunchtime. Sometimes I had to do it early in the morning. Sometimes I had to do it late at night after I put the kids in bed, but I can find 30 minutes at some stage during the day to get the 5K done.
If I was going to do a fun run, how do I set this up? What are some tips?
I would make sure you give yourself enough time, so 6, 8, 10 weeks apart to train for it. I would set a regular training plan. Okay, I'm going to run on Monday, Wednesday, Fridays, and I would also add in some other sorts of training too. Would you do some strength training, doing some yoga, doing some core work, doing some Pilates, things like that? They're going to assist with you being a better runner.
Well, I think the thing I do miss about running is just how easy it is. You don't need any equipment and you can basically do it anywhere, Jo.
Oh, I absolutely love it. You get oxygen in your lungs, the fresh air. And former Foreign Minister Julie Bishop is a huge fan, and she said she used to run every day while travelling for work overseas. She reckons it's the best way to get to know new cities. I love that.
Aussie rules players these days are clocked somewhere between, 12 to 20 kilometres at the top end.
It's unbelievable.
So it's a fair bit per game, that is. Yeah, not sure I ever quite got 20 with that. But up next, we catch up with a very exciting young star of the AFLW. She's fast on the field, Bomber star recruit Amber Clark. She's coming up right after this on the House of Wellness.
So it doesn't matter what sort of flash car you drive. If there's no energy source in the car doesn't move. So if you think about our cells, which are the units of function in the body, the mitochondria creates energy. Just like the fuel source in your car, the mitochondria is the fuel source in the body. One of the major drivers of the mitochondria is coenzyme Q10 in its active form, which is ubiquinol.
A fat-soluble antioxidant found naturally in every cell, ubiquinol acts as the spark plug our bodies need for energy production. It also has a role in supporting heart health, male fertility and healthy cholesterol. But like many processes in the body, ubiquinol isn't spared from the effects of ageing.
This is the problem. Our bodies were designed, evolutionary-wise, to function well for 30, 40 years wandering around a jungle with a spear. So if you don't have good levels of ubiquinol, which drop in the body, especially as you get over 30 and precipitously when you hit 50, then you may not have enough energy.
This fatigue is a sign of less energy production in the powerhouse mitochondria that's found in our cells and necessary for our organs and bodies to work well. While ubiquinol comes from a variety of foods, maintaining our energy means we can never have enough of it in our lives.
To me, ubiquinol is one of the major chemicals in the body. It is in foods, but for example, you've got to have about 10 kilos a day of broccoli, a kilo and a half of sardines, or 3 kilos of steak to get 100 milligrams of ubiquinol. I think it's important people speak to their health professionals about where they can best source that.
Well, that was Heinzie and cardiologist Dr. Ross Walker there with some tips on restocking and refuelling our bodies the right way. Now, big change of gear here, Jack. If you were a car, what sort of car do you think you'd be?
You always ask me the more interesting questions, don't you? Maybe a Mini, small and annoying.
Well, you said that. That wasn't me. Well, I reckon Jack Essendon's latest recruit, Amber Clark, would be a Ferrari, maybe even a Rolls-Royce. That's how good I think she is. She's one of the fastest players on the field. She's got amazing agility and speed as well.
She certainly is great to watch. The 17-year-old's amazing skills and versatility meant it was only a matter of time before the AFLW would come knocking.
Yeah, they did, with Essendon choosing Amber as their latest and youngest recruit. The Bombers are one of 4 new teams to enter the AFLW, as you know, Jack, for the 2022-23 season. And I love Season 7. You can see already the progression, the standard, the skills. And when you've got great athletes like Amber running around, it's a good thing.
Yeah, it's thoroughly entertaining. The Bombers won their inaugural match against Hawthorn, and great things are expected for them under their coach, Natalie Wood, especially when their pool of new young talent includes a hotshot like Amber.
So I started footy back when I was 8 years old, back in under-9s. I started playing at the local club, now North Foxes. A lot of the boys in the team went to my primary school, so I sort of went to school with them and played footy with them. I mean, it was nice playing with the boys, but there was definitely times where they didn't want to pass to me because, I was a girl. And that's when the coach sort of got into them and was like, you can't be doing that sort of thing. And then moving into the girls, it was kind of like, this is where I'm going to have to, get used to, because hopefully I'll end up playing professionally with them one day. Well, Sally Pearson, obviously it's a different sport, but I used to do athletics a lot. So she was always one that, I wanted to be very much like. I sort of hoped one day I might get the chance to race against her, but she retired earlier and I had to quit athletics, so I never got that opportunity. But then in the women's footy, like Bonnie Toogood, Maddie Prasparkas, Erin Phillips, Daisy Pearce, I've always looked up to them because I thought they're such good role models, leaders, and just great players in general. It was definitely a huge honour being a life member now at Narre North Foxes, especially being the first girl. I think it's now pretty cool to have other girls look up to that and see, you know, that they can do that too.
Fleming versus Clark, a couple of young stars on debut.
It's definitely a bit tricky sometimes trying to juggle both footy and school, especially when it's year 12. Finals starts as exams start as well, so it'll be a pretty challenging time to balance both, but I think with the support of the club and everything, I'll be able to easily do it, so it should be fine.
One duel with Trudgeon, and Clark does well to invent some space.
I don't even know what it is, it's just the atmosphere of it all, making new friendships, just everyone. Yeah, I can't even explain it, I don't know what it is, it's just such a good sport. I love it so much.
What I love doing most is educating people on the many ingredients that contribute to our daily wellness and beauty needs. But when there's just one formulation that provides support from the inside out, well, that makes my job easier. The Swiss Beauty Multivitamin Beauty Complex contains a comprehensive blend of 11 targeted vitamins and minerals, plus marine collagen and hyaluronic acid. This multi-action supplement is intentionally designed to be the foundation of any transformative beauty routine. What appeals to me is that it comes in two forms, a tablet and also a tasty watermelon powder form. And some of my favourite skin-loving ingredients included a vitamin C to support skin elasticity and firmness, and retinol or vitamin A to support healthy skin and structure. And beyond skin health, there's also biotin and silicon, and they support two of my favourite things, luscious hair growth and nail thickness. They're all wrapped up with other ingredients to assist with feeling and looking your best. Vitamin B3 and iron support energy production and vitality, and turmeric helps with de-bloating and digestion. Our beauty world is evolving. It's no longer just about our physical appearance, but now also focusing on our general well-being. Feeling good on the inside radiates to the outside, and that is the key to beauty.
Jack, we've talked a bit about running and getting active, but this year there's an even bigger reason to lace up the trainers and hit the streets.
You are so right, Jo. Much to the joy of joggers, the iconic Melbourne Marathon Festival is back in 2022. It kicks off on Sunday, October the 2nd, where people can either run, walk, wheel or jog anything from 3 to a whopping 42 kilometres.
Well, a lot of the participants are either on a personal quest or on a mission to raise money for a charity that's close to their hearts.
Charities like My Room, it's an incredible organisation led entirely by volunteers that supports kids and families affected by cancer. Kids like James Batsis.
I think it was June last year I was diagnosed with T-cell lymphoma. It all started with just a sharp pain in my neck that I dismissed. But then after a couple of days of more intensive pain in the chest and back, we rushed to the hospital and realised that there was a massive tumour in between my lungs and that was pressing against my heart. I found, depending on where I was at in the cancer journey, I was feeling different things. At some points through it, I was just depressed because I had no function. I just couldn't do anything at all. No showering, no going to the toilet, no eating, no talking, just nothing.
Each year, over 900 Australian children like James are diagnosed with cancer. It's debilitating for the whole family, physically, emotionally, financially. The volunteer-led organisation My Room helped to carry some of these burdens.
So My Room has 4 funding pillars which are critical to the journey of any child and their family going through cancer. The first one is clinical care positions. Things like a physiotherapist, dietitian, speech therapist, social worker. The second one is medical equipment. Wherever that's needed, we are there to support. Then there's clinical trials and research. And this is absolutely paramount because this is going to help lead us to our goal of that 100% cure rate and family support. I mean, so many families need financial assistance when they're going through this journey. And for My Room, we are there as a Samaritan-type charity, so the requests will come through a social worker directly to the charity. I mean, it's a very, very difficult time for these families, and we are so happy that we are able to be there in the background supporting them.
You never know when cancer's going to strike. I mean, I was 16. I was relatively healthy, riding my bike twice a day. It's just a random thing. And the next time it happens, it could be your kid. I mean, you'd want to know that the support's going to be there, that your child is going to have access to physios and to occupational therapists, and they're going to be able to eat normally and walk normally and type normally and live normally. Because without those things, life loses its joy in a way. The main message from this is just to raise awareness and funds for communities that support people going through childhood cancer, like My Room, because they know they can trust this charity with the funds. They know that it's going to go directly to the services and it's going to go to kids who need it like me.
Well, Jack, I'm sure you agree with me that anything that involves sick kids really just goes to the heart. And I know dealing with the illness is hard enough. The financial pressure that comes with it is just an added layer that families really don't need.
Exactly, and it's why fundraising is so important. We did mention the Melbourne Marathon earlier, and heaps of companies enter with a corporate team to do just that. This year, the crew at Chemist Warehouse has put together a run club specifically to help with the My Room charity. I went along on a very bleak Melbourne early morning to cheer on one very inspired team. Mario, you're out here training, rain, hail or shine, plenty of rain today. Can you tell us what inspired you to start the Chemist Warehouse Run Club?
Well, the Run Club really started about a year ago, right in the middle of COVID. Melbourne went into that big June lockdown and a couple of the boys started running, and we thought, well, if we're going to pick a charity partner, what better partner than My Room? We got to know them purely from many of our patients in store and some family staff members that have been through them on Ash Centre there. And thanks to our sponsors, we've raised over about $230,000 already, and now we're with the run, we've opened up the website to take more fundraising in to get us in the lead up to the marathon. So we're hoping to push about $300,000 over the journey. We're hoping to impact as many families as we can, and it's not just a money thing. This is more about raising awareness of that cancer centre there and the tremendous work that the staff do.
I feel really lazy. I've dressed up in my running gear, but I didn't actually run this morning, so you're going to have to convince me to join next year.
Definitely. No, next week. I've got the kit ready to go.
Yeah, the kit looks very good. Very good indeed. You'll inspire me to give it a go.
If you spoke to me maybe 2 years ago or even a year and a half ago about doing competitive running, I would have probably laughed at the idea. We want to support all those people that are going through this sort of trauma, and every dollar counts. So no donation's too small and no donation's too big.
Look, it's definitely hard to get out of bed, but when you've got people to come here and do something with, like running, it makes it 10 times better, and you're not doing it by yourself, freezing cold.
Well, that looks like a pretty formidable team, the Chemist Warehouse guys, lining up for a marathon, Jack. Now, tell me, did you join them for a run?
Look, I didn't, but our boss, Mario, did ask me to come next week, and I feel like saying no to your boss. It's not always a good career move.
Good luck with that one, Jack, yeah.
But they are a team inspired to us. They're fantastic. It was the worst weather that morning, but they were all out there. They were training like mad, and every cent raised will go to My Room, so you can head online to support the club. I know I will. I will be there in the coming weeks, I promise.
And Jacqui, I love the fact that you get your milk on tap. But do you know how much dairy you should eat every day?
You're about to tell me, aren't you? There are so many conflicting stories about what you should and shouldn't eat, and I have no idea.
Well, you're one of the 97% of Aussies who don't know either. Now, a daily serve from the Dairy Food Group is a cup of milk, 3/4 of a cup of yoghurt, 2 slices of cheese and a half cup of ricotta cheese. So plenty to choose from.
Is that all of that together?
Yeah, the whole lot.
All
you need
that?
1,000 to 1,300 milligrams a day. It's quite a lot.
I don't have that. What will happen to me?
There's no hope.
It's already happened.
It's already happened. Well, I have a lot of cream and ice cream. Does that count?
Yeah, that'll work.
It all counts. It all counts. I have no trouble consuming cheese and more cheese one of my favourite foods, but I don't imagine that's the healthiest thing either.
Now, I'm pretty sure I'm not this old, but I do remember the stories here in Australia, Nick, of glass bottles of milk being delivered at morning tea break for all kids in classrooms, and there was always a little bit of a search because the top bottles had been sitting in the sun for a few hours and the milk got a bit warm, so you wanted to stay away from the ones on top, from what I understand in the past.
It was an issue for me because I was at school in the UK and the milk was frozen. But did you know that milligram for milligram, sesame seeds contain 7 to 8 times as much calcium as milk? So perhaps if I ate a few more burgers... but seriously, though, the problem with not getting enough calcium is that there are usually no symptoms until it's gone way too far and you get a broken bone. So you need to keep up that healthy diet, plenty of exercise and a bit of sun for the vitamin D.
Which is good to hear. A bit of sun, a bit of winter sun, and get out. We need more vitamin D. It's a great way to wrap up our show for today. Thanks to Joe and Dr. Nick and Jacqui. Always a pleasure to catch up with you guys.
And you can catch up with myself and Gerald quickly this Sunday on the House of Wellness radio show.
And make sure you check out our spring magazine with author and Wellness Empire founder Jessica Seppel on the cover.
I'll do that for sure. Jacqui, thanks as always to our great friends at Chemist Warehouse. Bye for now.